Welcome to Ghana Promise. We express economics, global health, science, and social thoughts. We comment on issues that affect the life of the ordinary person. We are apolitical and nonpartisan. We say what we see fit in the best light we see fit. It may seem to you we are taking sides. No, 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 no. We don't have that as our goal. And now, we welcome the host, Dr. Gadja, spelled capital G, E, T, capital J, A, H. This is Dr. Gadja, an economist, computer scientist, medical doctor, and global health PhD epidemiologist. I do this as a calling to help Ghana chart a course for greatness and, in the process, help Africa along the way. There are many issues we'll be discussing on this platform, and we welcome your comments, rebukes, and questions. Today's topic. The last time we were talking about how to triage Ghana as a patient and find out the solutions that are necessary to stabilize the patient Ghana and move on from there to well-being. I was trying to tell you that, as we all know, prices of everything economically is determined by the demand and the supply of that thing. So in Ghana's case, the total supply and the total demand of whatever determines its price. I went on to tell you that when you look at the Ghana economy, the main bloodline, the main artery or vein which you can supply the economy with what it needs to move on, is petrol. So our topic for discussion today, or our topic for discussion, is solutions to Ghana's economic crisis. We all heard the president loud and clear when he said the economy is in crisis. So we have chosen here in the studio for the Promise of Ghana to take the supply side of the price curve. Because if you look at it, the situation that Ghana is faced with is worse than COVID. Let's go back and think about how we handled COVID for success and go a notch higher, because this is worse than COVID. We need a hands-on approach from government every day, speaking to the Ghanaian people. Every day, I suggest that. Although we take the supply side of the price curve, we encourage that the demand side waste must be significantly reduced. I am not in government, and so I will not be able to identify the kind of waste that exists, but those who are in government can identify the waste and take away the waste completely. Some of the process of taking away waste is to cut down salaries where it is necessary to do, take ghost names off civil servant employment list, stop projects that do not bring returns in the short and in the long run, stop money siphoning into politics, Things such as that. So then now, as we're on the supply side of the price curve, the first thing I suggest we should do to increase supply of goods and services is to cut petrol prices by 50%. To cut petrol prices by 50%. And also go around and make available more petroleum products from government negotiations. Find it wherever you can. Government continues to subsidize petrol by 50%. After that, government must try to work the supply line for petrol and petroleum products to ensure no waste, maximum efficiency in delivery, price stability, access improvement, everything on that supply chain for petroleum products must be looked at. Necessary adjustments, necessary remedies put in place to make sure that line has no waste. Because if you are subsidizing a product that has a lot of waste, it's waste of money. So government has to make sure that that is going on and subsidize the product 50%, I suggest. For example, somebody will say, oh, all this is like there's inflation. Why are you trying to put in more money into the economy and all that? It depends on what you want as a country. You may take a look at the U.S. There's inflation in the U.S., but they chose to pump more money into the economy. You have to know what you want as a country. President Reagan was one of the major supply side presidents. And it's not because supply side is wrong, but it's only that the demand side is popular, which is unfortunate. Now, increase in supply will shift just theoretically in economics and will shift the aggregate supply curve to the right, which means there is growth. GDP will go up, income will go up, but price will fall because as you shift the supply curve to the right, given the demand curve, the aggregate demand curve, prices will go down because you realize aggregate demand curve slopes left from left to right. Basically, it's a negative slope. So just increasing supply will bring prices down, theoretically. But in practice, it cannot be done in isolation. As the price goes down and GDP improves, government must make sure it is mobilizing more revenue, not through stringent means, but through increased economic activity. Through increased economic activity whereby more people are in the tax bracket. And if necessary, even reduce taxes for those who have been paying already. Get new group of people into it. Increase savings as a result of these activities will go high. Now, the 50% decrease in petrol prices or petroleum products will begin a ripple effect in the whole economy that will cut prices by more than 50 in the rest of the economy. Government should not expect that prices will just go down or sellers or traders will just decide to cut their prices because petrol prices has gone down. No, they will not do that. So government must be ready to engage with traders and market associations, focusing them on government expectation in the market as a result of the cut in petroleum products. There must be in place policies to regulate price increases. Let me give an example of what I'm talking about. For instance, you can have a policy that says that you cannot increase prices beyond 25 pesos in any particular month as a policy. So if anybody wants to increase prices, they can only increase it 25 pesos in a particular month. So somebody wants to increase prices for 2 cedis will have to take maybe 12 or more months to be able to get there. That's a policy. And the government must know that people will just not follow policies, but it might use the associations, the trade associations, to police these policies and have a government level enforcement mechanism against the associations if violations or compliance is not gotten. Banks must be directed by government to invest or give loans to particular selected businesses using government money. Bank can have their money that they use for other things, but government must make available to banks money that is directed. It should be such that if banks do not comply with policies on these, the bank forfeits distributing their loans or making money from these loans. And it should be said that the success of the business the bank gives the money to should be directly on the bank, with an oversight from government checking from time to time how successful these businesses are doing. So the bank will have to find out who is best in terms of their proposals to benefit from these loans and still continue to monitor them and make sure they are doing the right things for progress in the business. So that will be directly dependent on the bank. So banks will have to go further from just giving out loans to ensuring profitability of ventures to which they support or finance. Let me mention some of these areas that I see in Ghana that we can do well in, like in food processing, like in storage of food and other stuff, like in cold stores, basically huge freezers and stuff like that to be able to store perishable products. Solar, rain harvesting to ensure water that is potable and clean. As we are faced with destruction of water bodies by excessive mining activities, at least we could go that way so at least we know our people are drinking good water and not being victims of contaminated water that brings sickness, diseases, and eventual death. Also, I suggest that government remove taxes on imports to spur import competition in the country. That will draw down prices generally and subsidize selected local industry to compete with imports. We don't need to be competing with every import. No, selected imports. The point is that if you take the tariffs off and all those things, you will give the economy the advantage of enjoying the comparative advantage of the goods and services produced elsewhere. Now, there is the possibility of enjoying the comparative advantage of other countries' production, but because of tariffs and taxes, which the government keeps taking, makes these products very expensive to the Ghanaian, which goes to affect the living standard of the Ghanaian. The Ghanaian cannot live in a way that they feel free. We have to unshackle them and have the Ghanaian be able to access and be able to consume any product they think they can consume. Once somebody, merchant, thinks there's a demand, he goes to bring it in, we should allow them to compete. So we should take this tariff and taxes off imports. It has been there since Nkrumah. The reason was to protect local industry, But let's say it. How many local industries have been protected from all these tariffs of imports? It has become an avenue for revenue for government, and that should not be it. That is making the people suffer because that avenue for revenue is only taking money from the people. That is extra taxation on the people of Ghana. Because the products come in, all we see is people pay more money for something they should have been paying less for. So that is an excess taxation from the people. It is not protecting any industry. Even when in Nkrumah's era, in those areas when it was done stringently, we found out that the local industries that were supposed to be competing with against these products were not developing because there was no competition. Beyond that, they did not see on regular basis how good the competitors were doing in order to try to match them or beat them. We should take the taxes off and allow the products to come into the country. If they can compete, them come in. But selectively, the government must take money and subsidize those items that they think we have comparative advantage in and be able to beat the competition that is coming in. We should not try to just do everything. No. When we do everything, we will not benefit from the comparative advantage of the product of the country that knows how to do it best. You know, if somebody produces milk better than I do, I rather want to take better milk than to stifle better milk and take poor milk. We should not make that mistake. It will not be helping our people. That is with import taxes and the rest. You do that, reduce customs and exercise their size. Find other ways of revenue. There are a lot of ways of revenue that government can get instead of this import taxes, and what all that is driven to is corruption. It just increases bribery and corruption in the country. So that is an area. I know that is a difficult lift for government because government will think, oh, my money source is gone. No. If your economy is booming, some of these things that you need money for, you will not even, government will not have to do it. Private sector will take it over. So the bottom line of our focus is the quality of life of the Ghanaian. How to improve the quality of life of the Ghanaian. That's our focus. So if we have a situation where the economy is boosted and booming, private sector will take over most of the things that government is doing now. Say healthcare, say road provision of roads and bridges and highways. Private sector will take it over because the economy is boosted and booming. Electricity, water. All the government needs to do is to put down parameters, boundaries to regulate these private entities in order to save the Ghanaian from arbitrary use of private profit power. That is important. So with regulations, we have to look at what is needed for the Ghanaian economy. Focus on the critical infrastructures. The government can also take pressure off banks by insuring every account to a determined amount. It is not okay for somebody to put their money in the bank and the bank tell them that if we go down, that's it. No, government must be able to insure banks, and it's not a difficult thing. Government can take part of the reserves that banks put and insure every bank, even on the international market, to a tune, whereby when they have difficulty, the insurance company will pay. These are things that can be negotiated, and it's not difficult. So with prices falling, we expect two things to happen in the Ghana economy. One of the things that will happen will be there will be excess liquidity, which excess liquidity will mean that there will be too much money, and the fear of a recycling of the inflationary effect is paramount. Now, what does government have to do? There are things, that is why these policies do not go in isolation. Now, the second thing that we expect will happen with the excess liquidity that was happening. With the excess liquidity, there are things that we expect to happen. One of the things is there'll be increase in savings because people have more money in their pockets because price of goods and services are falling. Another thing is people will begin to invest into ventures that they think are profitable. So there's increase in production, which eventually goes to increase GDP. Now, the savings that the banks will be having as a result of reduction in prices, government must have regulations to channel those savings into loans to selected business industries, basically selected industries of what it has determined as the critical things they need, so that only businesses that are going to do these things benefit from these loans. And then now the government's own role is to increase patriotism by incentivizing the Ghanaian public to focus on purchasing and promoting local goods and services. While government is doing this, government must be wary of possible leakage of all the benefits out of the system through the consumption or overconsumption of imports. So we have to look at it and make sure we are not just consuming imports without selected local initiatives competing against some of these imports and reducing their level of consumption, and also encouraging the Ghanaian to buy made in Ghana products and shun imports. And that is how you do it. That is how you do it. So that the gains will not all of a sudden leak outside again and we become a country where we don't produce anything and we buy everything. Now, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. It depends on what you're looking at. The U.S. economy wanted to be that. They only wanted to focus on transactions, bank transactions, and everything. Everything else is produced somewhere in the world. Why did they want to do that? Because production kills. Production of goods and services releases toxins into the atmosphere. Even mining is worse. Road construction with all the dust is worse. It has to be controlled, but we don't have that happening in Ghana. The dust is all in the air. It kills us quickly. We get cardiovascular diseases very quickly. You know what is interesting is that the white man and let's not use colors. Those in the West and those in Africa, let me say Africa or developing countries, they all suffer cardiovascular diseases. However, when you look at those in the West, it's mainly lifestyle. Maybe eating too much protein, too much fat, or something of the sort. So they clog the lungs and all that, or the heart, arteries. But when you come to Africa, it's not necessarily a lifestyle disease. It's a disease of where you live, your environment, the amount of pollution that is there. Because we breathe in all this particulate matter that is emitted into the atmosphere through mining, exhaust, car exhaust, and all the other things you can think about. Production, rubber, burning, and all that. And we inhale them, and these things eventually lodge in our veins and arteries, blocking these lines, leading to the same condition of high blood pressure or any of those vascular conditions, which it gives the white man, the European or the West person also. But ours is not a lifestyle situation to a large extent. The only lifestyle situation it is probably we don't exercise much as we grow older. So, not producing locally, it's not that much of a problem. The point is that as a country, you have to focus on how to make your people happy. Is how to make your people happy. How they can do little and still enjoy life. That should be the goal. Now let me give you a scenario to buttress this point. Nations have to make choice, hard choice. Governments have to make decisions. You have to decide what to do in a crisis situation such as Ghana finds itself. Think about a story whereby you have a reservoir, a tank, and the tank is leaking. You buy water into this tank, the tank leaks and the water runs out. Now, all you want to do as a goal is to make sure there is water in the tank anytime you want it. That's the scenario I'm presenting to you. That's your goal. So now, you know the tank is leaking. When you put water in it, it leaks out. You also know you have to be buying water because the tank is leaking out. You are not certain how well you'll be able to close the tank. And each time you close how well you'll be able to fix the leak. And each time you fix the leak, it costs you money. And you are buying water that will leak out if you don't fix the leak. As a country or as a person, you have to choose between whether to continue buying the water and have a leak out, or whether to seal the leak, which each time when you do, it costs you money. You have to compare those two options, because depending on your particular situation, you may be better off buying the water and just allowing the leak to continue until you're able to replace the tank. Assuming the leak is said that anytime you fix it, after 3 days, it happens again. And each time you fix it, you spend 20 cedis. After 3 days, it happens again, you spend 20 cedis. So in a week, you probably will have to fix the leak using 60 cedis. But the water, you buy 50 cedis of water in a week. What should you do? You realize in this case, although there's a leak, you are better off just buying the water, because the leak that you have, it doesn't leak all the water. You still have some remaining. So instead of spending 60 cedis every week fixing leak, which will still leak some water, you are better off just buying water until you change the tank. Those are the choices that government has to make. We have two sides of a price line, demand and supply. We have to decide whether we take the demand side, which was what the president talked about, and that has been the side we have always been on since Ghana became a nation. And this is what it has brought us. No change, really. Or we take the supply side, which we have not ventured before, but it makes sense. And we see other countries have tried it. Because at least the supply side, you will be going forward, you will be growing. Now, let's tackle the question of Ghana head on. We know, as we've already known in the past, that this particular situation of inflation, that is quick rises in prices of goods and services in the country, will lead to citizen uproar. Managing citizen uproar will need money. Maybe buying accoutrements for police and all that, riot control, all that needs money. And unfortunately, it will need dollar to control. Because there'll be citizen uproar, Unions will rise up and agitate for more wages, both in the government and private sector. There will be labor crisis. All that will lead to a shrink in the GDP of Ghana. There will be less supply of goods and services as a result. And there will be more price increases at each turn as it goes through the cycle. Now you have a bad situation get worse. And in order to be able to manage it, you need money. When workers fight for more pay, you have to give them money to solve the situation. So whichever way you look at it, to manage a crisis like we are in Ghana, we'll need money. And I am proposing that instead of using this money this way, which doesn't make the government popular anyway, which doesn't make the people happy anyway, I suggest that we look at the other side. Take this same money and subsidize petroleum products by 50%. Influence the cost of transport to go drastically down. Cost of transportation in the country goes drastically down. Goods and services are made more available and at cheaper prices. More money is left in the pocket of the citizen to do other things, including investing in profit-making ventures. With government guidance, though. Savings is increased in the banks. There is excess liquidity that will be channeled to loans for ventures that have been identified as long-term goals of government to help the economy, to save us. Increases in domestic production and competition through persuasion and patriotism to influence a little as possible as we go towards an increased GDP. We must be worried about leakage of the benefits out of the country by trying to encourage patronize of Ghana products. These are the possible things that can happen. Said that at the end of it, Ghana wouldn't have shrunk in their GDP as the other side would have created, but would have expanded, becoming a more industrialized country. Like the president said, we have to find a way to make our difficulty, you have to turn the adverse situation into a positive outcome. Yes, if you do it the demand way, it's not going to get it. The only way to do it is to do it from the supply side. That is how you can turn an adversarial situation into an advantage for Ghana. Inflation is nothing more but a call on the nation to expand with more products and services. Let us, Ghana, answer that call of inflation and expand our economy and go forward, expand, increase GDP, and move forward and be a great country. I am done.